So, good evening, ladies, gents, boys, girls, microwaves, and whatever you identify as on this Wednesday evening in November. And tonight we are bringing you our Cab Direct Championship season review for 2024. And tonight, I'm sorry, but somebody's had to babysit him for the night, and it's turned out to be us. Good evening, Alan.
Good evening, Dan. How are we?
I'm very good, thank you. So let's get this ball rolling. If you want to kick us off with your little bit of a summary up of the season of Berwick.
Yep. So, looked kind of a promising season for Berwick, with their signing of Lewis Kerr, as their new number one, and with Rory Schlein taking over as their skipper. But unfortunately, with the injuries they had this season to Lewis Kerr and Rory and Bastian Bork, it just wasn't to be. But on a positive note, Drew Kemp did have a good season, for Berwick, which for a difficult season for them, just a little bit of hope there was a good thing, I suppose. Looking at the league form, they got just 11 points from the 16 league meetings, and unfortunately just couldn't quite make the playoffs. And yeah, in the knockout cup, they went down to the Scunthorpe Scorpions, and got beat 63-27, and also lost to Scunthorpe at their home track in Berwick, 54 points to 36, meaning they lost 99-81 on aggregate, and therefore didn't make it through to the next round of the Knockout Cup. But yeah, not a great season for Berwick, Mr. Palmer, would you agree?
Can't believe I'm saying this, but I would. Yeah, it's been tough. It's been tough for Berwick this year. You know, obviously, Lou is a quality number one, and Rove's a quality rider. They really missed that extra heat leader. That's no disrespect to someone like Drew Kemp, who's been absolutely outstanding for them. But Jai Etheridge, I think, is easy to say was a disappointment for Berwick as well this year. Bastian Bott would have been something special if he didn't get injured at Poole. So we'll move on to the Monarchs of Edinburgh, which, again, a bit like Berwick, proved to be a bit of a difficult season. Even though they did top the BSN series, the Scottish section, as well as doing a double over Glasgow earlier in the season. But unfortunately for the Monarchs, it was a 7th place finish for them with 12 points. Obviously, injuries to Kai Thompson and Justin Sedgman didn't do them any favours, but only really having one heat leader really in the team as a number one was never going to do them any favours. Alan?
And no, it wasn't, to be fair, you're right. They did have a good season though. I just think they were just lacking a little something in that team. I just can't quite work out what they were lacking.
And I think the key meeting for Edinburgh's season was the meeting against Plymouth at home, where they lost at home to a team that had Mason Watson as a guest number one.
Yeah, you got
So
to feel that's the match they should have won.
right, if you're watching, I apologise now. We're letting Alan loose with the Ouija's.
I promise you, I've done my best to keep it non-biased as possible. So obviously they started off as reigning champions, and given the lineup they started with, it didn't look like they were going to retain the title. And as it goes, it wasn't to be the case. With only 3 riders retained from last season and the winter signings of Leon Flint, Steve Worrell and James Pearson and Paul Stark back again for another spell. The title defence started at Berwick, and that's where it really kind of went downhill with the loss of Lee Complin. We'll just swiftly move on from that. But anyway, in came Jack Smith. But yeah, didn't get any better for the Tigers. On the 3rd of June, we lost Steve Worrell to labyrinthitis, and that was all she wrote. Making a couple of changes to bring in Jason Garrett and Matic Ivicic. We thought maybe, just maybe, this would be the signings to help us through. How wrong we were. How wrong we were. And then it didn't end there for injuries, as Jason lasted 2 matches before ending his season on the injury list down in Poole. But we made one final change, bringing in Anders Rowe, who was just a little shining glimmer of hope in what was a bit of a dismal season for the Tigers. You could say Chris Harris and James Pearson had a fairly difficult season, but had a fairly good season in what was a difficult one for Glasgow. But yeah, it was difficult. The Tigers finishing 5th in the league on 19 points, just missing out in the playoffs, with the last spot going to Workington. The Knockout Cup, Glasgow won their home match 51-39, however lost down at Oxford 54-36, meaning they lost overall 93 points to 87, going out to the runners-up of the Knockout Cup, the Oxford Cheetahs. Palmer, your thoughts?
Could have been a better season for Glasgow, really, couldn't it? It wasn't, certainly wasn't the best season up there. Obviously, you guys not making the playoffs for the first time in 10 years is bound to hurt. And obviously, losing Steve was massive for you guys, and yeah, much to the delight of every non-Glasgow fan.
That gives me a reminder of the 2012 Glasgow season just after we'd won the league. It makes me feel like we've gone back that way.
You wait 12 years for another title, yeah?
Yeah, you win the title and then you lose it the next. You just go downhill the next season. That's how we operate up there.
Well, you are Glasgow.
Anyway,
you're only bound to go downhill.
Over to you with Oxfordshire. Right.
Yeah. Well, I could talk about Oxford. I could talk about them all day long, but I won't because we're restricted to an hour, and we've got to get through every team. So obviously, if you're a regular on Shoot Some Shale, then don't be afraid to get yourself in the comments, and I've got them up on my phone here. As in, we're chatting bollocks. You could just say, "Oi, you're chatting bollocks." But yes, we've watched a good portion of Oxford meetings here on Shoot Some Shale, and it's safe to say they built a very, very solid looking team, which was tipped for the playoffs, and they rightfully made the playoffs. Where you've got a formidable 1 and 5 there in Scotty and Sam, as well as obviously having Luke Colleen there and Ashton Bowden, riders that are only on the up. And it's a season that was so. It's another case of so close yet so far. It's what had happened, what would have happened to them if Luke Colleen didn't crash out in the final. Could they have been champions? Quite easy, but everything was good about Oxford's season. They're having Sam at number 1, Scotty at 5. The progression of Luke Colleen, Ashton Bowden, Jordan Jenkins are certainly things to be proud of at Oxford. And it's another season of progression. 2022, the comeback year. 2023, they made the playoffs, if I remember right. And then 2024, they made the final. So next year, I'd be betting on the Cheetahs to potentially make or lift the trophy in the Knockout Cup. They demolished Glasgow, much to everybody's delight, in the quarterfinals, and then they demolished Redcar in the semi-finals before losing out to put a depleted Oxford team. Lost out to Poole in the grand final, where I believe they only had Sam Masters of their own team riding. Ouch. And Bowden. Thoughts, Al?
As you said, it was a season of so near yet so far. They made so many finals and had so many opportunities, just couldn't quite get over that finishing line. But you've got to give fair credit to Peter Stroke for that team just getting them so close to literally touching the cup, and just Neil Middleditch's team just snatching it from them. Got to feel for Oxford this season.
100%, and we'll let you do a little bit more talking, Al, because you are up next with Plymouth.
Yep, and I'm just going to put a disclaimer. I apologise to Dan Winchester for this.
Already.
Already. Well, what can we say about Plymouth? Well, did only keep 2 riders from last season. They have our bounce back kid Ben Barker and Mr. Daniel Thompson. They brought in his brother Joe. They brought in Alfie Botel from Birmingham. They signed Jacob Hook and Kyle Newman, and also brought in Nico Cavati, which they are hoping will be a rider they'll forget in the future. They then released Kyle Newman to bring in Patrick Bayek, and then had numerous injuries with Ben Barker, Dan Thompson, and Nico Cavati all being injured throughout the season, which made it a bit difficult for Plymouth. They did have one of their best wins of the season, however, beating Edinburgh away at Armadale, whilst having a really depleted side, as you mentioned earlier on. Yeah, fair to say the highlight of probably their team was Dan Thompson, given they're probably their best performing rider in what was a pretty poor season for Plymouth. Plymouth finishing in 8th place on 12 points, only losing out on 7th on points difference to Edinburgh in the league. And in the Knockout Cup, in the first round, they faced good old Scunthorpe and lost 61-29 away down at Scunthorpe before heading home. But they did win 51-39 at home, but it wasn't enough to beat Scunthorpe, and they lost 100 points to 80 the night. Your thoughts on Plymouth?
Crap. It's as simple as that. I'm not even apologising because I know he's watching. But nah, look, I don't know what it is with Plymouth. Every single year they seem to have a promising side, and then it just goes to pot within the first couple of weeks. I don't know if that's because of the size of the track, if that's because the money's not great, if that's just because they've got Dan Winchester in the crowd. Who knows? But yeah, not the best team, especially with a certain rider in there called Scunthorpe, a team of one-track ponies. How many finals did that get to that rider?
Anyway, I'll pass on to you for the next 3 teams. So starting with the Poole Pirates.
3 teams in the trot. You poor people, I do sincerely apologise now. So for the Poole Pirates, what can be said about them? They had an absolutely extraordinary season, as they always do. Just the Pirates, they had by far the best starting lineup at the start of the season, and they finished top of the table on 34 points, which is no surprise to anybody, as out of their 16 meetings, they won 7 at home, and the only one they lost was to Oxford in the middle of the season. Away from home, though, their form was pretty solid as well. They won 6 of their away meetings in the league. They drew 1, can't remember where that was, and they lost 1, which ironically was at Scunthorpe. In the Knockout Cup, well, obviously they went on to win the Knockout Cup as they dismantled Edinburgh in the quarterfinals. Before they went, dug some great big holes and completely and utterly buried Scunthorpe in the semi-finals, winning 110 to 69 in the semi-final before demolishing Oxford 114 to 66 in the cup final, claiming them one of 3 trophies at the Pirates' Den, or on the Pirates' ship, sorry. The signing of Vinnie Ford at reserve was massive for them, and I think he brought a lot to the team there at Poole. And it's safe to say, Al, they was the best team in the league, and they thoroughly deserve to do the treble.
Absolutely. Neil Middleditch built a side that was just unstoppable all season. Fair play to them. Yeah, deserve to win everything they got.
Right, and I'll take you to the next team. The Redcar Bears. What a season of 2 halves really is. Well, it started pre-season for the Bears, didn't it? You know, losing Thomas Jorgensen pre-season, which didn't help, and obviously Danny King missed 8 matches for the Bears, which is never ever ideal, and they was really reliant on Charles Wright to do the business for the Bears, which there's no disrespect to the rest of the team. You know, Jake Mulford, Ben Trigger, Jason Edwards, and Connor Bailey, and Dan Jokes when he came in, on Jonas Knudsen. You're not going to win. You're not going to win anything with just the one man doing anything, which pains me to say. But yeah, signing Dan Jokes mid-season was probably the best thing to happen at Redcar. He took to Redcar like a duck to water. The Bears did finish 6th in the league, just behind Glasgow, with 18 league points. And then in the Knockout Cup, as we mentioned with Oxford, obviously Oxford defeated the Bears. Oxford defeated the Bears 95 to 85 in the semi-final. Although they did get through local rivals, the Workington Comets. Not a lot to be said about Redcar season of 2 halves. Al?
Yeah, it was a season of 2 halves. Didn't really start well. Picked up a little bit and then kind of didn't quite get there at the end. Obviously, I know you spent a good few matches down there watching them. It's safe to say it was a more improved season than some of the ones I've had in the past, but I still think they've got a long way to go if they want to push for that league title. But yeah, bit of a mixed season for Redcar, shall we say?
It certainly was. And now we come on to my my team, and this is my last team that I'll be talking about because he's going to go through Workington, although I have got some interesting stats for you after the Workington bit. But my team then, Scunthorpe, finished 3rd in the table, and that was more than fair as Scunthorpe was the 3rd best team in the championship all season. The only 2 teams that was able to match Scunthorpe at home was Poole and Oxford. Obviously, Poole winning there twice, once in the cup semi-final, and then absolutely demolishing the Scorpions in the BSN final. And Oxford was the only other team to win at Scunthorpe, as they beat them 47-43 in the playoff semi-final. The Scunthorpe tracked a very, very similar looking team to what finished last year, retaining the services of Michael Palmtoft, Jake Allen, Simon Lambert, Connor Mountain, and Nathan Ablett, with Ryan Douglas making way with Drew Kemp. Drew Kemp replaced by local lad Luke Harrison, who was absolutely outstanding this season and obviously more than doubled his average and has fully earned the right to be back at Scunthorpe in 2025, and Ryan Douglas leaving the club, which was very, very unfortunate, but nobody was going to be able to replace Dougie, and Kyle Howarth was given that job, and it's safe to say Kyle struggled, but the Scorpions, they got to the final of the BSN series, as we mentioned, and they lost out to the Hull Pirates. In the Knockout Cup, they absolutely demolished Plymouth in the first round before demolishing Berwick in the quarterfinals before being buried by Poole in the semi-final. Overall, and all, not a bad season, but could have been so much better.
It could have been, but you know what? For Scunthorpe, that's probably one of the best seasons they've had in the championship. And if they just had a couple of their bigger riders, firing, I think they could have been even better and possibly could have been the ones in the final over Oxford. Just had a few of the big riders like Howarth and Jake Allen firing, and they could have got up there. I believe it. Just a shame they didn't quite get there.
Well, we've got one more team left to cover out.
Yep, and that takes us to the Workington Comets, who made their return to the championship after they made their return to British Speedway last year, the National Development League. They built a septet by signing Craig Cook from Edinburgh, Troy Batchelor from Birmingham, and Klaus Fissing from Glasgow. Retained Stan McGurk from the 2023 National Development League team. 3 riders to the British League in the form of Selina Liebman, who also happened to be the first female rider in the British League. And also they brought in Tate Zitschke and Antti Vulas. They had a bit of a mixed season, Workington, bit like Redcar. They had a few injuries with Craig Cook, Tate Zitschke and Klaus Fissing all get injured somewhere in some form. They made one change, bringing in Paul Stark after he got released from Glasgow to replace Selina Liebman. To me, which I thought was a little bit harsh, but is what it is. And you could say maybe Troy Batchelor, Antti Vulas, and Tate Zitschke, they're kind of 3 standout riders for this season, given their performances they put in for the Comets. In the league, they finished 4th, beating Glasgow to that last playoff spot on 22 points from 16 matches. They faced eventual winners Poole in the semi-finals and lost 52-38 at Poole before being beat 53-36 at home to Poole and losing 105 points to 74 on aggregate in the league. In the Knockout Cup, they were beaten 51-38 away at Redcar before being beaten 50-40 by Redcar at home to lose 101 points to 78 overall and get themselves knocked out of the Knockout Cup in the quarterfinals. I think it's safe to say Workington, they built an interesting team and it almost paid off. They made the playoffs, but just wasn't really going to fire much from there given their injuries.
Workington's had a good year. It never easy to come straight into the championship, and to build a team like what they did. It was absolutely outstanding, if you ask me, and they've got a great little setup up there. I would genuinely urge anyone and everyone, whether your team's up there or not, to take a trip up there because it's absolutely outstanding. And look, they've built a solid team, a team that maybe shouldn't have been beaten at home, but probably would have taken a few demolitions away from home, which I think is what was virtually expected. I think that's how the season panned out for the team up in Cumbria. But other than that, that's all there is to say about them, really.
It is, yeah. And then bringing in Selina Liebman was a great bit done for the sport, getting the first female into the British League.
Nah, we like some controversy on Shoot Some Shale. and I've got a very controversial opinion about this said thing. Now, I've got no disrespect towards Selena Lieberman. I think, it's great that we had a female in the league, but it was just more of a publicity stunt on it. I can't imagine she would have come very expensive. And yeah, so I do think Selena was a little bit of a publicity stunt, but fair play to her. She had a go. It didn't quite work out, which is a bit of a shame, but sometimes it's just how it goes, and you've got to take these gambles.
Did we see her back in the championship for next season?
Maybe up at Glasgow.
I was thinking more Plymouth.
No, I don't think she's mad enough to go down there, Al.
I mean, you would be need to be mad to go down there. To be fair, you're right.
Don't know what you're on about, Mush. I've been down there.
Like I say,
Um,
mad folks.
So, just to wrap us up then, the biggest win of the season in the championship was recorded by the Scunthorpe Scorpions when they demolished the Berwick Bandits 63-27 in the Knockout Cup quarter-finals. During the 72 regular league fixtures that we had, 28 of them, which is 38.9%, went down to a last heat decider. So some interesting things there. When it comes to team changes, it appears that Glasgow was the only club to go into the market on more than one occasion when they obviously released Paul Stark and Al, who was the other one that Glasgow released.
Ace Piper.
Him for Matic Ivicic and Jason Garrett. And obviously Jason Garrett got injured and I believe he just used guests. And then obviously Steve Wall got ill, and then you had to sign Anders Rowe.
Correct.
There was 3 clubs in the championship: Berwick, Edinburgh, and Scunthorpe, that made no changes to their declared 1 to 7. Guest riders: Berwick was the team that had the biggest number of guests overall, as in 16 different riders was called up for a total of 25 guest bookings, with Joe Thompson and Connor Coles both appearing 3 times for the Berwick Bandits. Plymouth is something for Winchester to celebrate. Plymouth operated rider replacement more than any team in the championship this year, as in 5 of their regular league matches they operated rider replacement for Nico Cavati, and they had to operate it once for Dan Thompson. Here's something you could celebrate, Al. Chris Harris had the most tactical substitute rides over the season for the Glasgow Tigers. As well as him having the most tactical substitute rides, he also scored more maximums than anybody in the league this year.
Well done to Chris Harris.
And I do believe that wraps us up. So it's been a nice, quick, and easy review. And Al, unless you've got any extra words to add.
And I take it we're not doing a team of the season for this one, like you did for the.
Oh, go on then. We'll do a team of the season. I've got it jotted down here.
How do you want to do this?
I almost forgot. Well, I'll do my 1 to 7, and then you can do your 1 to 7. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Well, I'm glad it does. So, my number 1 is Dan Thompson. I think he's done absolutely outstanding work this year for Plymouth, and he's genuinely got himself into a position now where in the championship he can become a proper heat leader. At number 2, or my second rider in my team of the season, I've gone for Luke Harrison. Again, doubled his average, had a sensational year. He was really good home and away. That's about it for Luke Harrison. At number 3, I've got Luke Colleen, who was pretty impressive for the Oxford Cheetahs this year, as well as the Chargers and the Spires. Busy boy. Number 4, Drew Kemp. He was a shining light in a dark season for Berwick. That's about all there is for Drew. Ziski goes for me at 5. He was absolutely flying in the first half of the season. Went from a 5-ish average, I think, to a 7. Not bad, or nearly 7. Ashton Bowden rides at, well, doesn't ride, but goes at number 6 for me. He again improved no end. Number 7, Jake Mulford, who was steady but progressed nonetheless. How?
So my number 1 was Mr. Sam Masters. Led that Oxford team to between him and Mr. Nichols, but Mr. Masters absolutely phenomenal for Oxford this season, and showed what a true number 1 is in the league. Number 2, I went for Anders Rowe. Although he only had a short spell at Glasgow, I felt that impact that he made for Glasgow absolutely deserved him to be on the team of the season. I know people will be a bit 50-50 whether he should be there, but you know, I think he deserves it. Number 3 was Josh Pickering. What a season he's had for Edinburgh, and just absolutely flying in the championship this season. Number 4, I went for Ben Cook. Was a pivotal had a pivotal role in the treble, winning Poole Pirates, and for me was outstanding for Poole this season as a captain and rider. Number 5, to surprise no one, Richard Lawson, again a fantastic number 1 at Poole, and just shows what an out-and-out number 1 should be. Number 6, Tom Brennan, again another Poole Pirate. Apologies, folks. Had a great season for Poole and was another pivotal part of that 1 to 7 that helped win the treble. And at number 7, I've gone for Luke Colleen. Had a great season for Oxford, and as you said, just was outstanding down at reserve. And although he did get injured, I think if he hadn't got injured, I think he would have helped them keep the score close. I don't think it would have helped them win the league, but I certainly think it would have done a lot better for them down at reserve in the playoff final.
Now,
okay, whatever one it was.
I completely understand that our teams of the season are based on opinions.
Yeah.
Anders Rowe rode 3 meetings for Glasgow as a signed rider, and he made a team of the season.
Yeah, this was coming.
Is he only in there because you feel for him because he's ginger?
No, he was in there because I thought at least I have to get someone from Glasgow in here somewhere, and he was about the best of a. I mean, I could have put Harris, but that's a boring option. So he was the next best option.
Jesus Christ!
I mean, Pearson could have got in there, but I had to go for Anders Rowe.
Well, if you had to go for somebody, but but anyway, that's it for our championship review. Massive shout out to everyone that's joined us. I know it's been short but sweet, but you know,
like me.
I won't say you're sweet, Mush. You're certainly short. You're definitely not sweet. But anyway, thank you to everyone that's joined us tonight. We do appreciate you coming on. Keep an eye out on our social media for. We say social media. Keep an eye on the D&D Media Facebook page for any future projects that we've got coming up. We've got some good ideas, so who knows? Maybe we can bring them ideas to you in the not too distant future. But from me, from Al, from everybody at Shoots Them Shale, have a very good night.